One of many questions yet to be answered about Donald Trump's incoming administration is how it will deal with the growing number of states that have legalized some form of marijuana use. In this month's election, 4 states, California, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maine, joined 4 other states and Washington, D.C. in legalizing recreational pot use. In total, 28 states have now legalized either medical or recreational marijuana.
But the president-elect's nominee to run the Justice Department is staunchly opposed to marijuana legalization. Here's Senator Jeff Sessions speaking last April during a hearing on marijuana legalization.
We need grown-ups in charge in Washington to say marijuana is not the kind of thing that ought to be legalized. It ought not to be minimized, that it's in fact a very real danger.
For more, we're joined by CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid and Mark Kleiman, director of New York University's Crime and Justice Program and professor of public policy. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Paula, let me start with you. Are there any indications yet as to how the incoming administration is going to enforce federal drug laws?
Yes, we are likely to see a change in the overall tone in terms of how they actually implement the federal drug laws. Under the Obama administration's Justice Department, they've really backed off of aggressive enforcement of drug laws. That's part of an overall effort to reform the criminal justice system, specifically when it comes to drugs and the disproportionate impact that has on minorities. But even though a lot of those reforms had bipartisan support, Sessions was always a holdout. And that's why we do expect that there will be more aggressive enforcement of marijuana laws. We just don't know how much more aggressive.
Mark, what about some of the arguments Senator Sessions was making that it's not good, that it shouldn't be legalized, it's a gateway drug, the narrative there against pot? What have your research shown?
It's definitely not benign. It's gotten less benign over time, and commercialization has made it worse. That is to say, the cannabis that's on the market today is substantially more dangerous than the stuff that was around 20 years ago, and that's not a healthy development. There's no evidence of a gateway effect. That doesn't say it doesn't exist, just that nobody's got any data for it right now. And there is pretty good evidence, not completely convincing, but I think adequate to go forward with, that making cannabis available reduces opiate use. Right? So in the states that have loose medical marijuana laws, have fewer opiate prescriptions, fewer opiate overdose deaths.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is an issue that gets to be very ideological. So all the supporters of cannabis legalization insist that it's a substitute for everything else. Yeah. And all the opponents insist that it's a complement with everything else. And those of us who do the research say, could be one, could be the other. There's no logical reason for it to go either way. You got to worry about juveniles who get heavily involved with cannabis or anything else. Right. Because it's pretty clear that having been dependent on something as an adolescent increases your risk of all kinds of addiction later on. Interestingly, over the last 20 years, we've had an explosion in heavy cannabis use in this country. 4 times as many daily cannabis users now as there were 20 years ago. And
you're seeing this among young people, too?
No.
No.
No, it's almost all among adults.
Really?
And damned if I know why.
Yeah.
But there it is. There's been some increase among minors.
I can give you some idea.
Yeah.
But we're not back to 1979 levels for minors.
Right.
Whereas for the adults, particularly heavy use, it's unprecedented. There are 8 million people who are smoking every day or almost every day.
Well, Paula, the president-elect says he thinks individual states should decide. We have 28 states that have passed this now. Is there any chance you think this could get rolled back in some of these places?
The federal government has a lot of power, and marijuana is still illegal at the federal level. They can't uncriminalize or recriminalize marijuana in the states that have passed these laws, but they can make life very difficult for businesses that operate in those states. Here's how they can do that. First of all, they could tear up what is called the Cole memo that was issued by the Deputy Attorney General Cole, saying, look, prosecuting marijuana, not the best use of our federal resources. Let's not make that a priority. There was another memo that also said that banks can and should do business with legal marijuana businesses. That's also very important. You tear up both of those policy memos, that's going to make life very difficult for businesses and that supply chain in states where it's legal.
All right. Paula Reid, Mark Kleiman, thank you both very much.
Thank you.